Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing alcohol by volume. I have here my mango green chili wine. I figured it was perfect for this. It came in at a 14 point something percent, but it's going to be my assistant as we get through the video here. What I'd like to do is kind of have an in-depth discussion, but a quick discussion without boring anybody too much about how sugar and honey work when it comes to alcohol by volume or desired ABVs in our particular wines and our meads. I've had a lot of questions about this, so I figured this would be a great time to discuss it. I got a lot of notes here. I want to make sure I cover it as thoroughly as I can. A lot of the viewers actually probably know even more than I do, so you guys feel free to chime into the comments there and help out your fellow viewers there regarding alcohol by content. But the general rule of thumb here, and let's start with sugar. The general rule of thumb here is that 1 pound of sugar raises 1 gallon of water, let's say 1 gallon of liquid, by 5 to 6% ABV. And I'm going to pop up a really simple math equation here. And the math equation, essentially, you take your desired ABV. So let's say in this case it's 13, not 13%, just the number 13. We're going to divide that by 5.7, and that equals 2.28. So that means in order to get 1 gallon of water to 13% alcohol, I need to add approximately 2.28 pounds of sugar. So it's a fairly easy equation. Honey is a little bit different. I'll get to that in just a second. One thing I did want to mention is I created an Excel spreadsheet to kind of help out folks to get to that approximate number a little bit easier than just having to guess and place mad scientists at their must stage. It will have 2 calculators there that will auto-calculate for you. All you need to do is add in your desired gallons. So if you have 2, 3, 4, 5 gallons, whatever that is, what your desired ABV is, and it's going to auto-calculate how many pounds of sugar that you should probably start with. And that might vary just a little bit, and you might want to fine-tune it during your must stage, but it gives you a really good starting point. And the same thing with honey. There's a second calculator for that, and that's down in the description, so grab that. Totally free for your use. Before I move on from the initial part of the sugar conversation, my first section here, I did want to mention something that with a lot of us who use white table sugar or white cane sugar, white table sugar is generally 100% fermentable. It doesn't bring anything else to the table besides sugar, so it generally is 100% fermentable. So the math equation is slightly different with honey, because with honey, we're bringing other things to the table, and let me discuss this a little bit. So for honey, it's a little bit different, and you need to add in a little bit more pounds of honey than you would in sugar to reach the same ABV in a 1 gallon batch. And for purposes to make it really easy for everybody, this whole discussion is going to be about 1 gallon, because you can extrapolate that to anything else once you know that it's for 1 gallon, right? Multiply it by 2 gallons, 3 gallons, you get the point. When it comes to honey, remember that white cane sugar is about 100% fermentable. When it comes to honey, generally the general rule is it's about 80 to 82% fermentable. The rest of the structure in the honey is bringing in the water, minerals, aromatics, all of those things that come in with the honey. So you're not getting just the sugar, you're getting in a lot more whenever you bring honey to the table. If you were to add in 1 pound of sugar and you were to add in 1 pound of honey, the sugar will give you a higher ABV than the honey will, and that's because there's other things included in that honey that are non-fermentable. So let's do the same math equation now for our honey. Let's say that we have 1 gallon of water, and we want to raise that 1 gallon of water to a 13% desired alcohol by content. Well, remember in the sugar, it was going to be 2.28 pounds because we're dividing by 5.7, remember? Well, in honey, we're actually going to take that 13 and divide it by 3.2 instead of 5.7. And I'll pop up that math equation here for the honey too. So with that math equation, 13 divided by 3.2 is going to give us about 4.06 pounds of honey to reach that same ABV. Remember, we only needed 2.28 pounds of the sugar to reach that 1 gallon because it's more fermentable. But with the honey, we need more honey, about 4.06 pounds of honey to get that same ABV. 100% fermentable item on this side, and about an 80 to 82% fermentable item on this side. All right, before I move on to the next section here, which is going to be original gravity, specific gravity, let me take a drink from my assistant here. That's what makes me smile. It's a lot of fun. Mango green chili. Go check out how to make it. It really is it's a niche flavor, but it's super fun. All right, so with our next here, let's talk a little bit about, for those, I know there's going to be those in the comments and those that are viewing that are wondering about specific gravity, how honey affects that, how sugar affects that on a gallon per pound basis. Generally speaking, 1 pound of sugar is going to raise 1 gallon of water about 0.046 points up on the scale there. Now that's different for honey. Honey, for 1 pound of honey, 1 pound of honey is only going to raise 1 gallon of water about 0.035 points of specific gravity on that hydrometer. So you can see again, our sugar, because it's more fermentable, raises our specific gravity by more points, or our original gravity by more points than our honey does. Let's talk about a little bit when you should measure it. The first measurement that you should take is when you're creating your must and you put your water into your container, your liquid into your container, you add in your sugar, you add in your honey, you should take a hydrometer reading right there and see exactly what that's going to be. Now that doesn't mean that that's going to be the exact ABV, and I'll talk to you about why it changes a little bit, but that's your initial reading and you're going to want to notate that somewhere. Then after crushing your fruit and putting your fruit into your must, wait 24 hours. Even for those of you folks out there that don't use sulfites, that's absolutely fine. The wild yeast is not going to kick in that quick to change your ABV that quick within about 12 to 24 hours. If you're not using sulfites, maybe err on the side of caution on that 12-hour range and just let that fruit properly incorporate with your must. If you are using sulfites, give it a full 24 hours. There will be no fermentation whatsoever. So why do you want to take another hydrometer reading at that 12 or 24-hour mark? The reason for that is because when you crush that fruit, you're going to get the juice that comes out of that fruit and into the must. A lot of people think by adding in that fruit, they're going to get an increase in ABV, and that's simply not the case in a lot of fruit wines and meads. And let me explain. When you crush that fruit and you put it into your must, what happens is it releases a lot of the juice. And most of that juice that comes out is going to be water. So it's actually diluting your overall must. And by doing that, it's actually lowering your ABV. Now, from my experience, and I have made a lot of wine and mead over the years. And from my experience, that ABV will drop in 12 to 24 hours once you add in that fruit, about 1 to 1.5%, sometimes 2%. But about that 1 to 2% is what you're going to get in drop. Then you can do the math with the sheet that I gave you that's down in the description below, and you can figure out exactly how many grams of sugar or honey that you need to add back into your must to bring that ABV back up to your desired ABV level. So that's important. So checking it at the must stage, and then giving it 12 to 24 hours and letting all that juice come out, and then checking it again and making sure that you're at the desired ABV. All right, now a couple of best practices to get an accurate ABV. You want to make sure that when you incorporate that sugar or that honey into your must, that it is fully incorporated. With sugar, the easiest way to do that is a little bit different depending on what stage you're in. With sugar, the easiest way to do that at the must stage is to put a little bit of water into a pot, warm it up, pour your sugar in there and dissolve that sugar, and then pour that into your must. That's the only stage that I will actually add water with sugar at the same time into my wine, my must, what have you. When I go to back sweeten it, I will only add sugar, again, because we're trying to maintain the ABV. Some people will actually make a 1-to-1 solution when it comes to back sweetening with 1 pound of sugar to 1 cup of water, and they'll make kind of like a simple syrup, if you will. Well, that dilutes your ABV. And a lot of people don't care about that. And when it comes to home brewing, you do what you want to do. All the things that I do in all of my videos are just what I like to do and what I've learned through my experience. Remember, everybody's going to do it their own way. This is just my preference. And we're talking about ABV today. So I want to make sure that you get your ABV as accurate as possible. All right, now let's discuss honey just a little bit. When you're putting honey in at your must stage, what I recommend is warm it up. Everybody does it differently. If I'm doing a 1-gallon batch, I have plenty of space to put it into a glass bowl, put it in the microwave for about 1 minute, 45 seconds to 1 minute. And that is just warm enough to really easily incorporate that in with my water. And with honey, if you've seen some of my videos when I make mead, I will use a stirring or a degassing wand that hooks up to my drill, and it has those 2 pieces on the end that fling out whenever it starts to spin. That thing is awesome. It saves me so much time when it comes to either incorporating sugar, additives, honey, whatever that is. Go check that out in the Amazon store. It's like the smallest tool that you could think that you would need, but it really is something that makes my day a lot easier. And with the honey at the must stage, the easiest way to make sure it's properly incorporated is honey will kind of stick to the bottom of the bucket or whatever you're putting it into. Once there's no more honey on the bottom of the bucket and it feels it's completely slick on the bottom with whatever stirring utensil that you're using, it's generally well incorporated enough for an ABV reading. Now let's talk about a couple of different stages whenever we're going to add in some sugar or some honey into our must. Let's talk about that 24-hour time frame, that 12 to 24-hour time frame. Let's say that you take an ABV reading and it did drop about 1 to 2%, and you want to add in some sugar or some honey into your must to get it back up to that ABV. At that point, you no longer want to do a 1-to-1 ratio with that sugar water or dissolving any kind of sugar into water. You just want to add the sugar directly into your must, because it's going to be a very small amount of sugar just to get back that 1 to 2% that you lost. My best recommendation is, the way that you know that it's incorporated, is sugar will always sink to the bottom of your must. By stirring it, you can feel the sand or the grinding on the bottom of that plastic bucket or that glass vessel that you're using. When that's gone, on, it's generally well enough incorporated to go ahead and take an hydrometer reading. At that 12 to 24 hour mark with honey, you just need to make sure it's well incorporated. Just pour the honey right into that, warm it up, make sure that it's easily mixable, pour it right into your must, stir it in, same way that you would on a must day. All right, now let's talk about the end stage of ABV, and that's going to be at the bottling stage. You want to make sure that when you get to bottle, you take a hydrometer reading, because remember, you logged down what your initial hydrometer reading was at the very beginning, and now you're going to compare the two, and that's going to give you your final specific gravity from your original gravity, and you can figure out exactly what your ABV is. There's so many online calculators that'll do this for you. I'm not going to even pop up the math on the screen. There's actually one that you can get for your phone. If you go into your Apple Store, your Android App Store, and just type in wine, beer, ABV calculator, you'll find a free one. Tons of them out there. That's what I recommend. It's the easiest way to do it. All right, so just to recap a little bit, when are you going to take your hydrometer readings? In the very initial must creation stage, you're going to take a hydrometer reading. 12 to 24 hours if you're adding in fruits and all those fruit juices come out and that water comes out and maybe dilutes your must a little bit, take another hydrometer reading. Maybe adjust your must a little bit with a little bit more sugar, a little bit more honey. Take a hydrometer reading and log that down. Then whenever it comes time and you think that fermentation is coming to a close, is coming to an end, and you have a dry wine or a dry mead, take another reading and log that reading down. Then wait about 4 days to about a week. Take another hydrometer reading. If there is absolutely no change in your hydrometer, you're done fermenting. Hopefully you're at 1.00 or lower. If you're not, there's a number of reasons. You could have stalled. You have too much sugar that the yeast simply just can't ferment. And if you're interested in stalls, go check out my video on stalls. I do a whole in-depth dive on what causes stalls, and yeast in reference to what a yeast tolerance is in terms of alcohol by volume and things of that nature. And the final time that we'll be taking an ABV reading is right at bottling. When we get to bottling, you want to take an ABV reading and see, because it is possible that even though you took your hydrometer reading and you took it a week later and you saw no fermentation happening, crazier things have happened, and you can let your mead or your wine sit there for the next 30 days in secondary, what have you, or refining or clearing out, and you may just get a little bit more fermentation. So you really want to know what your final ABV is right at bottling, same day of bottling. So that's important. All right, that's a medium dive, I'll say, into ABV. We could still have a more in-depth conversation about it, but that answers the general questions that I get asked and that most people think about. I just wanted to remind you guys that spreadsheet is in the description. It's free for you guys to use. All you have to do, whether it's sugar or it's honey, is add in the gallons that you have for your particular liquid or your water, add in your desired ABV, and it's going to tell you approximately right there exactly how many pounds of sugar to add to get started and what your anticipated specific gravity reading will even be. Same thing with honey. Add in the gallons, add in the desired ABV, and it's going to tell you how many pounds of honey. All right, that about does it. You guys keep those questions coming. I love talking about wine and mead and all the science behind it. I'm a complete nerd when it comes to this stuff. I hope some of you guys watching are also not getting too bored to death. And if you guys are out there and have a lot of knowledge, please share it with the community down here and the viewers that are there. I'm all about sharing the knowledge. It's taken me several years to get to the knowledge base that I am, but that's also because I had a lot of mentors and people to teach me along the way. So we're all here to share the knowledge and our love of wine and mead. All right, if you guys learned anything from this video or it helped you out in any way, please give this a like. If you really like this type of content and it's something that you enjoy, please hit that subscribe button. All those things really do help a small channel just growing out. I really do appreciate it. And until the next one, until the next question, or until the next batch, cheers.